Yay, she's back.
What have you been saying in my absence?
I just said I accidentally forced you out with all my NI bashing.
Oh, no. It was really bad. My phone is... I don't know if I had to, like, keep touching the screen or something for it to, like, not kick me out. Yeah, it's just my phone. Sorry.
Yeah, you have to touch the screen where my picture is.
It's true. No, I think it's true. I think ESFPs, I wonder what you guys wish INFJs would acknowledge about you, because it does sound like there's something that gets missed.
The number one thing, and I said this again just a couple hours ago on one of the Facebook groups, I think INFJs is like, no matter how hard they try, can't completely grasp the concept of doing something with no purpose. Like that in the ESFP actually just did something because it felt good to do it, and there's no like underlying hidden motive that they're trying. You know, there's no, you don't have to like try to analyze this to find some hidden reason why they did this. It's just because they felt like it. There was nothing else that went into it, and that's the thing that I think even, you know, one of mature age, like my mother, still just can't quite completely grasp that. It's like there's still just something that her head just can't quite wrap it around that. It's like, no, there's got to be something I'm missing, you know? Like, no, there really isn't.
I feel
the thing you're missing is that there isn't anything to miss.
I think, well, yeah, I think it is more of a matter of values, don't you think? Like, I don't know that it's not that I can't comprehend what that would be like. Because I think as a child, I think children do that naturally. I don't think they always have to have a purpose for what they do.
See, that's right there is the and I don't think just NFJs, but because the SJs are the same thing. It's like they can understand a child behaving in the way that SPs do, but not as an adult. It's like you're supposed to grow out of that, but then we never do. Yeah.
It's like, oh, I envy it. I envy SPs. I spend time with them, and I'm entertained, and I kind of lose myself for a while, and it's a nice break. But then I come back, and I have no concept of how to do that on my own. Like, I couldn't do it on my own. I needed their influence to help me relax and break free from the NI. And so... yeah,
my INFJ friend Sasha says that a lot. She can't sustain it for very long. She sort of goes into those modes of, you know, I guess the SE mode or whatever. But then she can only take it so far. But when you said the envy thing, it made me laugh because Barbie on the NF Geeks group, I think, coined a phrase or a word this week. She put like the hashtag SPNV, but I read it as SPINV, so that's like my new word is SPINV.
I do. I have SPINV back.
Your SPINV was totally getting to you, but
that's awesome.
But you know, that's where I like to say, well, you know, relate the other way around, but I really don't. Like, I don't have envy of the other direction. You know. I don't know. I just, there are times I guess I sort of, the thing that I envy about NFs is not really, I guess, an NI or any specific thing. It's more just the kind of, the kind of like deep devotion to a cause or a movement or just this kind of idea of improving the world and things like that. Because I can like sort of admire that, but I'm never going to fully like get it, like because I'm too cynical that way, and that I don't believe that there's going to be these grand changes in the world, or that people are going to change in some profound way. I think everything just kind of goes on, and you know, things happen, and then the more things change, the more they stay the same. Basically, is kind of the way I look at it. It's like technology changes, there's other things that change, but human nature stays the same. And NFs can get so like, you know, we're going to get this movement together that's going to make everybody all enlightened, and we're going to have this, you know, this changed world where everybody is, you know, at a higher level of consciousness and all these kind of things, and I'm just like, my reaction to that is just kind of to be like, you know, it makes me feel good to hear that stuff. I'm like, yeah, that sounds really cool. I don't really believe it, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, I think the reason you don't have envy in that other way, and the reason I do, is that is part of me. It's just like a very, very weak part. And so because it's there, I can relate. I have like an attractive quality, you know. Extroverted sensing is very attractive to me, I think, partially because not having very much of it is such a pain that I can see how it would help me. But for your goal and the experiences that you have, NI just slows you down. It wouldn't enhance your experience, probably.
Yeah, I feel like I'm more attracted to NE. It seems to be the more fun version of intuition.
Right.
Whereas I guess within I see too much of the negative and the dark side of it, you know, too much of the paranoia and jumping to wrong conclusions and not appreciating, I guess, more of the positive quality. I even started a thread once on Typology Central about tell me what the positive things are in I, because I'm not trying to be like, you know, this is this evil thing. I want people to tell me what's the positive of this. And people attempted to, and I understood some of it. So overall it was worthwhile, but overall, yeah, just as a natural tendency, extrovert intuition is more entertaining to me, and not as, it's not that it can't ever be negative, because I'm sure it can, but the negative side of that is more just kind of not being able to bring a person sort of back to reality, because they're just kind of shooting off in all these different directions. And that's like, it could sort of be, that sort of aspect can be, again, it can become frustrating, but it's sort of like tempered by the entertainment value of it. Whereas there's not as much, I think, you know.
Entertaining, and NF that isn't always what life's about. We need to find things that are meaningful.
I mean, I can find some entertaining examples of NI. You know, somebody like a comedian, Dimitri Martin. He's pretty funny. You know, or Dale from King of the Hill goes off on some pretty crazy NI tangents. So, you know, there's some entertainment value to be found there, but it's less, in my opinion. You know.
Is that your measuring stick?
What? How entertaining something is? Overall, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess that is a great example of a big divide for NI and SE, isn't it?
And notice that, you know, Jeff's NI and SE are farther apart than they are for me. It's like I've got SE second and NI third. You know, and for my NI, I like to use it, you know, like just kind of for fun, to like theorize about stuff and like see broad generalizations in areas that don't matter in my life, because I don't trust my NI to actually help me to have these insights that are going to be helpful in real life. You know, I might do the things that Jeff is saying that NI users tend to do, which is jump to wrong conclusions, and I feel like that's what I would do if I tried to use it in real life.
Yeah, and I remember you talking about that before, and I sort of looked at it like, I'm like, that sort of makes sense to me, because it's sort of like you're saying, well, this is this fun thing to play with, but you're not going to rely on it in any way to make decisions. It's just sort of going to be this thing where you're like, hey, it's fun that I can do this from time to time. And I said the same thing, you know, I think to Crystal and others about like when I get really tired, and I think I go into more of that, access more of that intuition, and it just sort of like comes out in just a form of kind of goofy kind of connections of things that don't have any kind of real relation to anything. It's just like, it can add to, you know, comedy. You know, it's things that I come up with that are just kind of loopy, but I wouldn't want to in any way put, like you said, trust in that to actually do something. Yeah. It's just kind of a thing that can be accessed in a certain state that can play around with, you know. So, yeah, I see it in a similar way, just like you said, not quite as often maybe as you do, but it sort of has to be something draws it out of me. I think the other thing I mentioned, the other way I mentioned that it happened was when I was talking with Amber doing the faith and type video, and I said that, you know, those kind of conversations can bring more of that out in me too, because they're more about like kind of unknown, you know, kind of the more mystical side of things. And so it's sort of like when I'm speculating about those sort of things, that can be sort of more in an intuitive mode, because I'm talking about things that by definition are not like concrete factual things that you can prove in any way. They're just, you know, they're just things that are kind of out there. Here's this idea about what this could be, or you know. things like we talked about, like heaven and stuff like that. I mean, obviously nobody knows like a factual, thing of what heaven is going to be like, but everybody has their like kind of metaphorical view of that. So yeah, there's stuff that can bring the intuitive side more out of me, but again, like you said, I don't trust it for something that's an actual like real life decision.
Yeah.
It's just sort of just the other side of things, which of course, as a sensor who grew up, not knowing about type differences, I could see that not everybody was the same, but didn't have those kind of frameworks for it. When you talk about the S, it, and divide thing, I of course that would be something I would assume that most people were the same that way. That it was like the whole idea of like intuition and things like that is something that is like the flip side, or the thing that would be would only come out in certain situations, not that it would be anyone's primary way of existing. And so, to learn that there's quite a few people that's the case about, it was kind of eye-opening.
Yeah, I think the reverse is true. I think the reverse is true for me, that not everybody is like thinking about this stuff.
Yeah, I think I told you before that when I talked to Sasha about, like, there's things where I talked about certain realizations I came through at points in my life, like, my mid-20s, I thought about this and this, and like in my 30, I thought about that. I would come up with these things that sort of came to realizations about other people, and her response was something along the lines of, yeah, I thought about those things too when I was like 8. It would be like all these things that as she's growing up as a child, because of the way that she is processing this stuff, she's constantly thinking about all this as she's growing up. Whereas, that's, I think, we talked about things that the INFJs don't understand about sensors. I think that's one of the things too, is that we're not spending our life thinking about all those things. So some of those things, 20s or 30s or even older, it could be the first time any of it ever occurred to us.
Yeah,
and so you're looking at it as this thing I got past like 20, 30 years ago, and meanwhile they're just coming up with it now like it's this new thing, and like, so that's something to keep in mind. When I see those topics where it's like, here's these issues I'm having with my sensor relatives and stuff like that, I'm like, number one thing you probably have to understand is, just like I said earlier about INFJs are not trying to intentionally misunderstand.
Mm-hmm.
The sensors in your life are not intentionally trying to misunderstand you either, for the most part, and they're not aware of your perception of the world. They're not trying to shoot it down. They just don't understand it.
Yeah.
And if they haven't had anything that's presented this to them, they are not going to understand it. And they're looking at everything from their framework and trying to fit what you're saying into their world instead of the other way around. And so it's going, when you look at it that way, then I think maybe people can be a lot more tolerant of those misunderstandings or differences, is that you have to come from a point of view of, it's almost like you're starting from scratch, like you really are dealing with somebody who's a child, because in a sense you sort of are, in the sense that the difference between the two is one person is in this area is at the child level of this person who is an adult, and vice versa. So it's like you both have to,
Why are INFJs so clumsy? Like, didn't you learn to walk at age 2?
Yeah, that makes me think of the Typology Central. They had a long thread called the Sensitard thread, and it was, the whole purpose was like for intuitives to post all the things that the goofy things that they did because of lack of sensing, basically, like things where, and I remember reading one where she talked about like going to work with a sock stuck to her pants from the dryer, like, and not going through the whole day and not realizing there was a sock stuck to her. And that was great, because I was like, I'm so much the opposite, where I think something is on me when there isn't anything on me. Like, I can be sitting there and the wind can blow on my leg and I think there's a bug on it, and I'm like slapping my leg to hit the bug that isn't even there. So that's, just illustrates that difference of like, I'm so much the other way. I'm like hyper aware of stuff to the point sometimes I'll like, think things are there that aren't even there. That the idea of going through a whole day with a sock stuck to me is just, really funny to me. But
yeah,
so I'm the intuitard instead.
Intuitard, yeah.
That's fun. Well, the next time we get together, we'll have to talk about like there's a book by Naomi Quink, and it's called "Was That Really Me?" And she talks about people.
I remember you bringing that up with me before.
I love that because it helps, like an ESFP hearing about an INFJ in the grip of their extroverted sensing and things that we do and how different it is. It's just showing why it's kind of maladaptive for us. Like when we try to be in sensing mode, bad things happen. Just like for you, if you were trying to be introverted intuition mode, bad things happen. You know, you see it as dark and depressive for you.
Yeah, it's like I don't know if you remember the clip that I showed you from One Life to Live with Tina talking about not wanting to go see a psychiatrist because she was afraid of what was going to be brought out of her. You know, and that's exactly right. I mean, that people, when I read another one today because somebody posted another personality test that I took because I can't resist things about me, but in reading the descriptions, it would say things like ESFPs can be hard to get to know, and I always used to think, well, that's wrong. We're easy to get to know, but it elaborates and says they can be very open, but can seem to be closed off when it's something that they think is too serious or too negative. So that's what they're really trying to say is the hard to get to know thing is for people that are trying to get to know like the dark side or the hidden kind of inner motive side. That's where we're going to close off more because we don't want to talk about that because it's like, why spend time wallowing in negatives? Let's talk about the good stuff. And so it's a very natural thing, and that again, I think ESFPs who have not studied other people in any way like this don't understand why you want to know those things. Why are you trying, like I said, like with Tina, she's like, why do you want to take this, I'm trying to be in control of my life, why do you want to like rip me apart? Because it's what it feels like. You're pulling things out of me and trying to like, disintegrate me. Like you're trying to take me apart. That's what it feels like. It's like, why would you want to do that? I'm trying to be together.
Be forced to forget, to stop analyzing, to stop finding meaning feels complete lack of control for me. I don't have any control on all this stuff that's outside of myself, and to just go with it, that is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah, again, like for me, it feels exactly the opposite, and not surprisingly. That's the times where I can, enjoy life and feel like everything's going smoothly, and then as soon as something is, let's break this down or internalize it in some way or things like that, that stuff drives me crazy. That and feeling like that I have obligations, because I don't like anything to feel like it's an obligation. So that's why I don't like things to be like scheduled or even. And I was talking with somebody else about this the other day. Is even things I like doing. So like I'm on a softball team. We have games every Tuesday. When it's time to go to the game, I never want to go. And it's not because I don't like playing softball or because I don't want to be part of a team. It's because I see it as like this thing that's sort of over me as an obligation. Oh, it's time to go do this. Instead of being able to come up with the idea of, oh, I feel like playing softball now, so now I'm going to go. It's like, oh, there's this exact time you have to be at this exact place to do this thing. And I'm automatically naturally resistant to that. No, I still go because I don't want to be the guy who's like, well, show up halfway through the game and be like, we're still playing. I'm not trying to let anybody down with that. I want to be somebody who can, be relied upon when it comes to being there. But again, like I'm saying, if I just went off my pure natural instinct, I wouldn't show up because I didn't feel like going that time. 2 days later, I might feel like playing softball, and then I want to be able to like call people up and say, let's go play softball. Because if I just literally lived entirely in my natural first inclinations, that's what I would do. It would be entirely whatever I just felt like doing at the moment without anything scheduled ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly how it is with me in swing dancing. Like, the swing dances happen at a certain time of the week and a certain time of the night, and sometimes I just don't feel like going at that particular time, but I'll go just because I know that that's when that's happening, and I might not get another chance for another week or so.
Yeah, right. So we adapt to the schedules because we sort of have to if we want to be able to do those activities, but it would never be our first choice. You know,
Yeah.
if it was up to us, it would be like, you know, you would be like, if you were in charge, you say, you're like, you ought to just be able to push a button and call all the other people who want to do it and say, okay, let's go do it now, you know, because that's when you
Yeah.
feel like doing it.
Yeah, we were kind of talking about that earlier about how SPs just like to do that. They'll just like call people and say, hey, if you're like doing this, let's go do this. And like, you know, yeah. Whereas, you know, the J types will plan and send out evites like, you know, 4 weeks ahead of time, and you know, and of course the SPs will just kind of ignore it and just like decide at the last minute whether they're going to
Yeah, and that's the devastating thing to me is when everybody comes up with all these excuses why they can't do it, or I've got to check with my spouse or my, you know, whoever it is, you know, like I've got to, and I'm just like, come on, why ain't gonna make it so complicated?
Do you want to go or not? And maybe they don't, and they don't know how to say no.
Yeah.
That's the introvert's problem.
Yeah.
Well, that's
I'm
the
gonna
thing,
let
and I think part of that could be like that people don't know how to say no because they don't want people to think if they do say no, that means they never want to go. You know, because that's I've heard that expressed as like if somebody, you know, if it's been 2 or 3 times in a row somebody gets invited to something and they say no, I don't want to do it, then they just get the idea, oh well, they never want to do anything, so they stop asking it, and so that's where I can see the conflict becomes is how do you indicate not just that you don't want to do a particular thing, but in a way where you want them to still ask you the next time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, I have to go, but I appreciate you letting me join the chat, Wayne, and it's good to catch you, Jeff. We missed you in the start. It's fun to have you here.
Yeah,
Thanks,
I
you
know.
guys.
Yeah, I'll definitely be posting this later. So.
Okay, I'll see you later.
All right, bye.
All right. Well, I don't know if you had anything else you wanted to bring up since it's just us now.
Since we're the last 2 standing, then we bridged the SN divide because we won.
All right, I guess that's a good way to put it. We're the last 2 standing.
Power.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I should probably get going anyway.
All right.
So it's a good of you to join us, and we had actually a pretty good discussion for a good like 45 minutes or however long.
I was determined to contribute in some way, so I'm glad we were able to keep it going a little longer.
Yeah. Well, yeah, things definitely worked out. I'll be posting this later after I get it edited and stuff.
Alrighty. Well, I'll look forward to watching the first part that I missed.
Okay. All right. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend.
You too.
All right. Bye.
See ya.
I have to go pee.